Today's tutorial is for a selfish sew. Even though I have so much show prep that I should be doing, I got this fabric from the Emporium and I just wanted to sew something for myself. So I'm going to do it and I really don't even feel that guilty about it. This fabric is from the Emporium's book round. It is currently open right now on pre-order. I probably will be getting more. I just love everything about it. I am sewing mine in cotton woven. She also has it in vinyl, but I'll probably get more cotton woven just because it's my preference. I'm also using webbing from the Emporium, sewing string from Wizardry. My zipper tape is from Sew Majestic, and today I'm sewing myself an Elsie. This is from Stitches by Christy. I have sewn an Elsie before on my channel, but the first one I did a little bit fancier. I added piping, some pockets, things like that. This one I just want it very simple. This one I'm going to be using daily pretty much for myself to carry around, and so I want it to be just a little bit more structured, so I upped the interfacing I used from the last time, and I'm not doing pockets because I really don't use pockets. This pattern is one of my favorite patterns because it comes together so quick. It's easy to cut out, easy to sew, and I just love the way it looks. So let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to prep it and the first things we're going to do. I'm using webbing for both the strap connectors, or anchors I think it's called in the pattern, and the handles. You could use a cotton woven or a vinyl for these, but I'm just going for easy and fun, and I felt like this webbing looked great with this print. For the lining and my exterior, I'm using the same print. For the lining, I'm only interfacing it with the SF101, but for my exterior, I do have a layer of fusible foam on each piece. For this pattern, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to add my handles and those handle anchors or strap anchors to the exterior before I add the lining. But if I had double-sided fusible foam, I would probably go ahead and fuse the exterior and lining together with the foam, and then I would just let those stitches show on my lining. That wouldn't bother me. Since my foam was only fusible on one side, it made it a little bit easier to decide to do it this way. But what I'll do first is I will add those handles and then the strap anchors. This is a bound bag, so the next thing I do after I have that is I'll just add the lining to it. I'm pretty much halfway done at that point. That comes together that quick. The pattern tells you to find your center, and then it tells you how far over you'll make the marks for where your handle is going to sit. You can make the marks easily on there, but I just make kind of like brackets with the clips to make it a little bit easier. I do have a line drawn right here, and that is where I'll have that webbing sit. But the main thing I'll do is make sure that it kind of fits in between these two pieces, and then I'm going to baste each of these bottoms into place. I'll be really careful that I don't have my webbing twisted and that they're both fitting evenly, so I will have them kind of double check to make sure I have all my measurements correct before I sew it. The pattern also tells you how far from this edge to this edge should be the distance in between. It is up to you though. If you feel like this is too close together, you could separate them and have a little bit of a wider strap. It's not going to matter too much if you visually prefer a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and get these clipped into place, check my measurements once again, and then we are going to baste these ends down on both the front and the back exterior. I double check my measurements. I'll carefully take this over to the sewing machine. I'm going to baste about 1/8 of an inch away from that raw edge, just so these are anchored down for whenever I add that strap across the bottom. When you're adding these handles, make sure you are using the correct piece for them. The handle anchor is a little bit shorter than the straps themselves or handles themselves. Now pull out that anchor piece. We're going to double check once we get this clipped into place to make for sure that we're not getting it shifted or twisted, that it is straight across the bottom here. If you wanted, you could use double-sided tape, you could use glue, you could even put rivets here to kind of help anchor it. The main thing you want to do is be careful when you're sewing that it doesn't move around and shift, because it would be noticeable. After you're sure everything is straight, you're just going to start sewing on one side. I like to start sewing on this side so that I can back stitch within the seam allowance and then come across the bottom go up, then come across the top. If you wanted, you could even do an additional row of stitch. I'm not going to do that, but that is an option to help secure this, or even just for a decorative look. So both of my rows of stitching are only going to be a 1/8 of an inch away from the raw edge. If I wanted to come in with a second row, then I would do a 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge, or an 1/8 of an inch from the previous row of stitching. Keep your hand on the webbing to make sure it doesn't shift, or if you feel like it does shift, pull out the ruler and double check. I trimmed up the extra webbing, and now I'm going to pull out one of my lining pieces to sew it together. If you're feeling fancy or want something a little extra, you could definitely add a slip pocket, a zipper pocket, a pleated cargo pocket, whatever you wanted on the inside. I just want this simple. I'm just doing a fun sew for me. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my exterior over so that it is wrong sides facing up. Place my lining down so that it is right sides up. They will be wrong sides together. Add a clip or two. And then you're just going to baste it. I definitely am going to baste from the exterior side just so I make sure that these handles stay out of the way and that they don't create like any extra bulk around this so that my stitching gets off. Also, if you wanted to add a tag, definitely would be a better time to add the tag to the exterior before you attach the lining. So your lining and exterior is attached right sides together. If you have any overhang, just trim that up. But what you'll do now is complete those same steps for the other one. We just got to fix our gusset, and then we'll put it all together and finish up this beautiful selfish sew. Now it's time to make our gusset. I'm going to use one piece of number 5 zipper tape. I do have it cut longer than my zipper panels. I'm going to add 2 zipper pulls, but I'm not going to add them just yet. We have the zipper gusset pieces, or the zipper panel pieces, and then the bottom gusset piece. I'm going to set the bottom aside, and I'm just going to start with this zipper part first. I have 2 exterior and 2 lining. For the lining, it is that cotton woven with just a layer of SF101. For the exterior, I'm using vinyl, but I typically, when I use vinyl, don't really interface it much unless it's something that is a soft, flimsy, stretchy vinyl. But I have noticed that when I don't interface properly on a gusset, I have some denting on the gusset and I don't get that really nice structure that we like. So I did go ahead and add a layer of, it's a Royal Pixie Premium is what it's called. I did keep it out of the seam allowance, but it's basically, it's not as quite as heavy as a Decaville Light, but it's stronger than an SF101. Maybe 2 layers of SF101 would be comparable. You could definitely have used Decaville Light. I was just running a little bit low on Decaville Light, so I wanted to use what I had the most of. This is your basic gusset. So the way I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of my zipper panel lining pieces right sides up, lay that zipper tape on it right sides up, baste in place. I will baste those top edges together with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once I have that base in place, I'm going to take an exterior and I'm going to put it right sides together. So the exterior will be right sides together with both the zipper and the lining. Definitely want to make sure I match up those short edges and the top edge. This time I'll sew it with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. After you have that sewn together, you are just going to separate these, pull the 2 zipper panel pieces wrong sides together. I kind of give a little tug so it's really nice and secure, and I'm going to baste the raw edges together first all the way down. Then I will come back and top stitch that folded edge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera and repeat those same steps to attach the other 2 zipper panels, the lining and the exterior, to this other side, the unsewn side of the zipper tape. Then I will add my 2 zipper pulls and trim up my zipper tape, and then we'll come back to finish the gusset by adding the base piece. I have the zipper panels sewn together, I have both of the pulls on, and I have the zipper ends trimmed. Now it's just time to add that bottom gusset piece. We do this the same as we do in all the other videos I've made with gusseted bags. We take the base exterior piece, place it right sides together with that zipper gusset. Go ahead and add a few clips there, then flip that over so that you're looking at the lining side. Take the lining piece, place it right sides together with the lining, and clip that in place as well. All of them should be lined up, matching that short edge. Go ahead and sew this with the seam allowance given the pattern. Make sure you backstitch really nicely here. And I also like to make sure that I have everything looking pretty good down the rest of the base piece, just so everything line up correctly whenever we finish up. Once you have that sewn together, pull the two base pieces so that they are wrong sides together. And then we want to top stitch that short side that we just sewed. I want to make sure I give a really good tug so that everything's secure there, and I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge. Once we have that top stitch, we're going to repeat those same steps for the other side. First, take your exterior, place it right sides together, flip your lining around so that it goes right sides together. Make sure nothing gets twisted. Go ahead and clip all of these together. Sew with that same seam allowance that was given in the pattern. We need to top stitch this edge just like we did the other edge, but I also want to baste these pieces together. So I'm going to flip everything so that they are wrong sides together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start basting down here where I finished that row of top stitching. I'm going to baste all along this long edge. Then when I get to the short edge, I'll pivot, top stitch across there, then baste all the way back down the other long edge. I'll go slow to make sure I keep everything in line and things don't shift and get out of line. Now you have your gusset completed, and you should have both your front and back, exteriors and linings completed as well. All we need to do now is find the quarter marks on both our panels and our gusset. We're going to match those quarter marks up and clip all the way around. I'll start with my front, which mine look the same, so it's not too big of a deal. But I will go off camera, find the marks, clip them together, but then I'll come back and show you how it looks, and then we'll sew it together. I have my gusset clipped right sides together with that front panel, and now all I have to do is sew around. The first time I sew this, I'm going to do a basting stitch just about 1/8 of an inch away, just to make sure that I keep these curves together. Sometimes the gusset tends to want to slip back, so I go slow with 1/8 of an inch. I use my hemostats if I need to. Then I come in with the binding with the full seam allowance. Just so you know, if you have everything interfaced, when you go around with the full seam allowance, if you don't feel like it needs binding, if you're just struggling with binding and this is for you, you could leave it with a raw edge. It wouldn't look good, but it really won't do too much if you have the interface, because that interfacing won't allow things to fray very much. I don't mind to bind. I like it, and this bag's for me and I really want it bound, so I will take the time to do that. What I'll do is I'll sew the basting stitch around together on camera, and then I will complete the rest of the bag off camera. That means adding the binding on the front and then attaching the back and binding it as well. I don't feel like there's a need to show all of it. I have videos on binding, and this is the same step I've done in many of my tutorials, so I just feel like it'll save a little time to skip that. If you find your corners are shifting, go ahead and try to just hold it at the top, the gusset, and kind of push down to keep it in line. Sometimes that'll be all you need to keep them together. If it's still shifting a little, just grab your hemostats and pull the gusset to where it needs to be at the edge of that panel. This is how it looks with that basting stitch. So I'm going to try to find some binding I like. I'm not for sure really what I have that will match this, so I'm going to go look around. I'll bind the front and then do the same steps to the back. I'll come back before I turn the bag right sides out so you can see the binding, and then we will turn it out and be done with this bag. I have my Elsie bag complete. I bound it with ribbon. I tried to do fold over elastic. I can never get that correct, so I gave up. I did use 2 different types of binding for the ribbon because that's just what I had. It's okay. Like I said, it's for me. And the binding, you never really notice it when you're looking inside the bag. So now I'm just going to turn this right sides out, and if I need to shape it, I'll put some clips around the edges. Here's how my bag looks. I'll probably do some shaping so that this lays flat and this edge right here is tucked out, or pushed out, I should say. But other than that, this is adorable. Look how cute this is. I love the materials I used. I love the way it looks together. This is such a fun, simple bag, but I know I'm going to love using it. It is just for me. The fabric is on pre-order right now from the Emporium. The webbing is on retail from the Emporium. The pattern is from Stitches by Christy. I love this pattern so much, and I hope you guys love it as much as I do if you've already sewn one. If you haven't sewn one, consider adding it to your list of patterns you use. This one for me is one that I use consistently over and over again. I use it for carrying stuff for myself, but I also use it for kids too. They can pack their things in there. It's a little overnight bag. It's not too big that it's heavy for them to carry around, but they can pack a change of clothes and a couple toys in there, and it's just a cute way for them to have their stuff organized. So many uses for this pattern. Thank you so much for watching another one of my tutorials today, and I hope today in your sewing room that you see a fabric that you fall in love with so much that you just decide to stop whatever you're doing and have a selfish sew, something that will just bring you joy and something that you can just use every day to make you smile. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.